Are you searching for a deeper understanding of yourself and your place in the world? Do you yearn for more balance, more peace, and purpose in your life? Well, look no further than the Intuitive Revolution podcast, your trusted source for holistic insights and intuitive guidance. I'm your host, Alicia Fariselli, and I am ready to take you on a journey to inner peace and balanced well-being. Welcome back to the Intuitive Revolution podcast. I'm Alicia Fariselli, your host. Today, I have such an amazing soul here today. Allison Holister. I met her a few months ago, and her story just captivated me, and I asked her to come on here and share this with all you guys. So, welcome, Allison.
Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited. It's been a long time since I've been in the podcast world, and I'm excited to be back.
Yes, I forget you had. So, Allison had a podcast previous to this. So go look her up and definitely go and look at her information too. But Allison, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, why are you here?
Why am I here?
Yeah,
that can go so deep.
Yeah.
That question can go so deep.
The world.
Here on this podcast today. I'm just here to share a little bit about myself. I met you a couple months ago at the Power Gals event, and it's just really cool. You know, I just love how synchronicity happens like that. You know, we're getting on the boat, and you're like, "I'm Alicia," and I have a spiritual podcast, and then this, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have to get to know you." And it just clicked, and I love that. I love those moments. But my name is Allison Holister, and I am a licensed massage therapist, and I specialize in structural energetic therapy. And I'm also a meditation coach. I hate to say teacher, but I facilitate meditation classes to help people unwind and live life with less stress and more peace and more happiness. I also went on, I believe my entire life has really been a spiritual journey, but I entered a more disciplined spiritual practice about 13 years ago when I was introduced to really high divine processes from a teacher in India. His name is Sri Kaleshwar. He left his body. He took his samadhi in 2012, and I was introduced to him in the year prior. And ever since then, I have taken this journey into these self-mastery teachings, which have been phenomenal. It has been quite the journey, and it has really allowed me to grow as a person and as a soul, and to take more responsibility for my life, and to, like I said earlier, learn some self-mastery tools so I can live my life with more peace and more clarity and more love and more power. And I can also help the people that come in and see me on a one-to-one basis. And that's what I wanted. Like, this journey for me started with a question. And the question was, anything that I need to learn to help humanity, anything, please bring it to me right now. And at that moment, the floodgates opened. The floodgates just opened. And so my journey began. And
amazing.
Yeah. So I'm here, and I love to talk about this. I didn't have like hey, Alicia, let's talk about this today, because I just really believe that the energy takes us where it needs to take us.
I feel like for our previous conversations, this is like just flows into something. So I didn't really prepare much either on our way. So I have questions. Yeah. So I do want to take our listeners back to that moment that you said, whatever you can do to help humanity. What brought that on? Because that's a huge question.
That is a huge question. So I was raised Catholic. I was the best little Catholic girl forever. And there's nothing wrong with Catholicism, because I really believe that it laid the foundation for where I am now. You know, it's about the journey of the soul. And my journey of my soul, led me to Catholicism. And I In my late teens, early 20s, my mother got really interested in the apparitions. And Jesus and Mary were appearing to this lady in Conyers, Georgia. And she was coming home with pictures of angels coming out of the sky. And I watched her rosary turn gold. So I knew that there was something more out there than what I was learning with just going to church, And I became very, very interested in mysticism. What more is there out there than just going to church every Sunday, or going to church twice a week? There's got to be more out there. There's got to be something that can answer these questions for me. Why is her rosary turning gold? What is actually happening here, and what more is there within me? So I was a brand new mom and I was sitting in church on a Sunday and was just looking at the priest who never upset me. Everything was fine. But something within me said, how,
Hmm.
how do I know I am Catholic? How do I know that I'm a Christian woman? How do I know that Jesus is the Lord and Savior? How do I know? Is it because I've been told or because I know it for me? And is this church going to give me the answers that I need? And has it given me the answers that I need so far? And that was the last day I went to church. And I set off on my journey. And my journey took me to metaphysics, where I became like really, really interested in Sylvia Brown. I don't know if you know who
Yes.
she is, but she was a psychic on Montel Williams. And
She was the psychic to know that back in the day.
yeah, she was. And my mom and I went to go see her once when she came to, I guess it was Charlotte. I don't think it was Greensboro, it was Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was just like, how does she know all this stuff? And so then I took her class on Gnostic teachings, and, it wasn't much more, but it was a little bitty step, But what that process, and then I moved to Florida and I had a teacher in metaphysics. Her name was Reverend Joanne Smith. Phenomenal woman. She passed away about 2 years ago. I love her. She's phenomenal. And she taught me a lot. And that process of going through metaphysics really helped me bust through the dogma that the church gave me. It started to help bust through that, through the guilt that I had for just being alive, It helped me bust through the confinement of all the rules and regulations that tend to surround going to church all the time, and started helping me see life in a deeper way, in a less stressful way, in a broader way, a more colorful way. But I knew that there was still more. I knew. And I stopped going because I just felt like my time was up there and that there was more for me to learn. And so I was a brand new massage therapist, and I was working with a woman that was in her 80s, and her daughter would bring her in on a weekly basis to work with me. And I thought her daughter was so cool. She would come in with all these different sacred texts like the Bhagavad Gita and Kabbalah. I think that's how you pronounce it. I've heard it said Kabbalah,
Yeah.
But she would always cross-reference it with the Bible. And she would say, okay, so the Bhagavad Gita or the Vedas say this, and then the Bible says this. It's like the same thing, And I was just like, I would be sitting there working on her mom. I'm like, oh my gosh, talk more. I love this because it's like feeding my soul, And so she came in one time after I hadn't seen her for a few weeks because she went to New Mexico. She saw a modern day saint. Her name was Amachi. And she asked Amachi a question, and Amachi gave her a little baggie of vibhuti, which is ash. And she said, when you're done with my mom, finish 5 minutes early so I can give you something. So, well, she put this ash in my hand, and I was like, whoa, because it just like tingled all the way up through my head. And well, I put it on and I felt high immediately. I felt high. I felt altered, actually. I immediately had to go into another appointment. The place where I worked, we left one room and immediately went into the next room. And so after putting this ash on my third eye, my heart, my crown, and my tongue, feeling altered, I literally felt like I was floating from that room to the next room. And this woman was sitting there and she said, I can't move my head. And it was about a week or so before school started for my kids. So it was in August of 2011. And she said, I'm back in school. I'm a teacher. I work at a Catholic high school and school's back for me, but I just can't turn my head. So she tried to show me. And I said, you know what? I can do some cranial work with you. Well, it'll be fine after that. And she said, okay. So I'm sitting there and I've got, her head in my hands and I'm doing, my work, structural energetic therapy. Immediately, like I've got my head on her hands and I went out. I was not a meditator. I was not a meditator at this point.
Wow.
And I just immediately went out and I closed my eyes and I was slumped over and I had my hands on her head. And I had this experience of Jesus coming to me. And he said, I'm going to teach you. You just have to realize and experience that you and God are one. I will teach you. And in this altered state, I'm sitting in a field. There's a green grass. There's a dirt road and there's a man laying there. And there's a bunch of other people around, and Jesus put his thumb on this man's forehead, and this man gets up and he's healed apparently. And Jesus walks over to me and says, I'm going to teach you. And I come out of this experience with my hands on her head, and I'm crying. I'm like, what just happened? I feel crazy. And I've never had, I've had dreams of Jesus. I have. Growing up, I had dreams of Jesus. But I've never had an experience like that. And like I said, I was not a meditator. I didn't know what had happened. I was completely altered. I'm crying. I feel crazy. I'm embarrassed because now, I'm crying and I've got a client there. I'm trying, her head is here and I'm like this, and I'm trying not to let her hear that I'm crying. Because, when you start crying, your nose starts running and
Yeah.
you're like, and so I'm like this, trying to wipe my eyes off my shirt and wipe my nose on my shirt. She opens her eyes and looks at me straight in my eyes. And she said, the Master Christ sent me to you.
Oh,
I didn't know what that meant. I spent the rest of the session, and if my clients are listening to this, they're going to be shocked that I'm going to say this, in silence. I talk a lot. I spent the rest of the session in silence, and I just didn't know what to do. Like, what do you do with something like that? I didn't know what to do. And so I went home. I still felt high, like altered, and called this lady, and I was like, what did you give me? And she said, actually, I've been wanting to introduce you to a teacher in India. And she said, he's too powerful for me, but I think you would love him because I know you love Jesus and he loves Jesus. And she said, Allison, he's so powerful. I saw him manifest emeralds and jewels out of his hand. And she said, I can't do it. It's not for me, but I think it's for you.
wow.
And I said, yes. And she said, well, there is somebody that I know that's going to call you this weekend. It's a 505 number. Please answer it. Following weekend, I'm at the beach with some friends and the 505 number comes up. The wind was blowing, so I'm sitting there with my bathing suit on and I wrap a towel around my head because the wind was blowing so bad. And I answer it, and she begins to tell me a story about how she was a shaman and how her teacher was saying, I'm not your teacher. There's somebody more for you. And she just couldn't accept it. Like, wow, there's somebody more for me, but you're my teacher, until she met Sri Kaleshwar, who came years earlier to California. And he healed a group of people in California. And she had never felt energy like that. And she immediately knew what her
Wow.
teacher was telling her, like, this is my next step here. And so she took that next step and went to India, traveled to India, and learned from him. And so then she said, you know, there's another teacher that I think you would be great with. So I called my friend and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what we've been looking for. This is it, you know, and I'm like so excited. And we connect with this other teacher. And for the next 12 years, I was immersed in high divine energy, high divine processes. I traveled to India. I learned so many healing techniques through the past, 12 years, now going on 13 years. And that's how it started. And I know that was long-winded.
That's such an incredible story. I mean, yeah, it's still like second time here, it still like gives me chills. Just your total story, something that came from just the connecting with the right people at the right time, which to me is divine
Yes.
intervention. Anyway,
Yes.
to if you hadn't been there the day she hadn't brought the ash and the
Hmm.
lady, like all that hadn't happened, that you might be on a different path now,
Yeah,
still kind of out there exploring, trying to figure things out. But it's like you were ready, and when you ask for that
I was ready.
calling, they're like, all right. It's like, so I mean, it's like it's such a testimony to, if you're asking for something, make sure you are ready. Like, are you not
Yes.
ready? That's what you want, because
Yes.
it's gonna happen.
And let me back up a little bit. I asked that question after she gave me that ash, and I felt so altered. I was sitting in that room with her and her mother, and I said it. Any healing techniques that can help humanity, please bring it to me now. I don't know. It was a deep, deep thing from my heart. At that moment, my heart was completely open and I was completely surrendered to my next step.
Wow, was that the first time you've ever felt like that?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So tell
Yeah.
me more about your India. Like, what? Tell me some more the highlights of that trip.
Okay, so India was, and I hope to go again, but I spent about 3.5 weeks in India in 2017 with my teacher at that time, and a group of people at that time. And so we went into Bangalore, and then we went through several different places that Sri Kaleshwar told his students to go to. And the man that I was learning with, his name is Chinello. He was one of Sri Kaleshwar's senior students. And so we were trusting in him, and he did. He fulfilled it, took us to all the places that his teacher told him to go. One of the most powerful experiences that I had was I went to Tirupati to see Lord Venkatesh. They also call him Lord Balaji. And the story with him goes, hundreds of years ago, he had two wives and they were fighting, they were arguing. And he took 2 steps back and he turned himself into stone. And there is where his statue is, his murti is to this day. It's his samadhi. When these people get so powerful, their bodies become almost like shackles, and they
Wow.
can do more outside of their body than inside of their body. So they say some prayers and they take off. They leave their bodies. They're that powerful, they can leave. And some people are powerful enough to leave for 3 days and then come back into their bodies. And some people leave, their bodies forever, and he left his body. But the thing is when these people have so much energy and they're bringing in so much high divine energy, their bones hold that energy. So it's a blessing for people to go visit these places. A big blessing, because then you're getting that energy too.
Yeah.
And so I'm standing in line, and I had heard stories about going to see Lord Venkatesh. And I was expecting to stand in front of a statue, like right in front of me, just like 5 feet in front of me. That's what I was expecting. And I'm in line for like 2.5, 3 hours. Our whole group is in line for 2.5, 3 hours. And we are like If anybody's ever been to India, it is packed there. It is packed. And people, they're not like Americans where you stand in a single file line. And they go to visit these sites. They search for God the way Americans search for theme parks. I did not see theme parks there. I saw God, and I saw people searching for God. Thousands of people. I can go to Busch Gardens, and there are thousands of people there, trying to get the next thrill. And these people in India are trying to find God, and
That's their
they're
thrill.
yeah, that is. And they're like here, there are thousands of steps that you can walk up, and people will take the pilgrimage just to prove to God that they are devoted, and take the thousands of steps up to this temple, in Tirupati. I saw people shaving their heads. Some people in my group shave their heads. It it's like a rebirth. So I stood in line with my group for hours, and we're like this, against all these people that are coming in. And
Assuming it's really hot there too.
it was hot. Yes, it was hot. And there were people people, so many people. And we finally get there. So we round the corner in front of this temple, because, hundreds of years ago, this temple was not made to house thousands of people. And there are gates, kind of like when you get on a roller coaster, the little metal gates that, you walk through before you get on the roller coaster. Well, there were these gates to keep people in their place. And so we're in the first row, and there are 3 rows. We're in the first row. Go around the corner, and my teacher says, "Look." And I was like, what am I looking at? And all of a sudden, like way far in the distance, there's a statue, and his eyes are covered. And it's not lit with electricity. There are candles everywhere. So there's like this long walkway of candles, and there are priests there, and there is the statue way off in the distance, way off in the distance. And at first I was like, that's it. This is it. I stood in line for hours for this, and that is all I had to say. Next thing you know, I'm gone. Everything goes quiet. Everything went quiet. And I'm sitting there looking at the statue. There was nobody else around me. Everything was absolute silence. Absolute silence. And the only people there were him and I. That was it.
Him in statue form.
Him and I standing there, staring at each other. But everything was silent for probably about a minute. I sat there in absolute silence, and it felt like eternity. And I was sitting there staring at him, and he was staring at me in the absolute silence. And in reality, not reality, because that's reality, but in this physical plane, I had all these people like bumping into my back and trying to push me away. But I was there in front of him, and nobody else was there. Nobody else was there. And next thing you know, the guards are in my face, and they're like, go, go, go. It's rare that anybody gets more than 5 seconds. And I had like a minute and a half. I didn't know what to do. Like, I was like, when here, they're like, go, like in my face, go, and I'm like, oh, and I'm walking
really coming back to reality, or to this world.
Yeah, back to the world. And I was just like, my goodness, what was that? I didn't even know how to process that. I did not know how to process. And we went to a corner, the group went to a corner, and teachers like meditate. I couldn't meditate after that. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know what had just happened. He's like, close your eyes and meditate. I tried to close my eyes, But at that point, like my mind was like questioning what just happened.
Yeah.
And I was filled with so much energy that I didn't know how to explain. And it has taken me years to process that energy. And it has taken me years to be able to talk about this. When you have experiences like this, the lessons they don't end. When you start to process, you can process for years and learn something more through it. There are layers and layers and layers to experiences like this. And like I said, it took me years. And what the biggest lesson that I learned from that one experience is that there is nothing more than me and God. That's it.
Became one.
There is nothing more than me and God. And when we are on our true spiritual journey, it is the uncovering of ourselves, getting down to who we are, where do we come from, and why are we here? And the experience is to find the God within. And there is nothing more than you and God. Period. It's so simple, but so
Yeah.
deep.
It is. I love that. And it's like, it's so hard for us to comprehend. And I think very, very, very few people actually get to that level of experience, or that connection that you had, that we all can have. But very few people, they try to go to exterior things and looking for God in other places, but he's completely within us, or she or him,
Always.
whatever. The divine is completely within us. Always. It's
Yes.
never been there. And we can look and interpret different philosophies, from all these ascended masters, but it all comes down to the simple thing: is love and God within you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it's so simple, but so hard at the same time. I have my moments where, I go up and down in my spiritual journey. And,
That's why it's called a journey.
It's a journey. It's not about, when I first started this whole process, for me, it was about the destination. Through this process, I've learned that it is not the destination, it is the journey. Because if God is infinite, so is our soul. How can there be a destination when the knowledge is infinite? How could I ever stand in front of anybody and say, I know, when the knowledge is infinite? There's so much to know, and there's so much to learn. And that has been summarized. That has been my journey. I'm in my journey, and I am happy to learn. And
that's a beautiful thing.
With that experience, when I experienced just him and I standing there in pure silence, absolute pure silence. If it's between me and God, and only between me and God, everybody that I come into contact with, it's between them and God. It is between them and God. So everybody that I come in contact with has that piece of God within them. And there's something to learn from each and every person. And that's what also makes my journey as a massage therapist so amazing, because I can essentially touch God every single day.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful, because these people come to me for me to help them, but in turn they're helping me too, because I'm learning from them. And it's such a divine, beautiful space and place to be. And I'll forever be grateful for the people that I come in contact with.
That is so beautiful.
Thank you.
That is absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. Everything you said was just nothing more, no words than beautiful for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So after your trip to India, and after going through the 12 years of metaphysical, I was training. I'll come to call it training, but it was much more than that. You understand that. How have you brought that back to your clients through massage?
Well, when you're involved in deep spiritual studies like this, it becomes you. It becomes you, and it becomes you through the form of surrender. Knowing that it's not me that's doing the work. It is a higher form. It is God coming through in whatever form you think God is. Because God is a personal experience for everybody. And I can't sit in front of anybody and say, God is this, because
Yeah.
the personal experience is different with everybody. I have learned to get myself out of the way most of the time. Sometimes I still have to catch myself. Most of the time, get myself out of the way and truly surrender. Surrender to what that person needs at the table. And when I truly surrender, and it's not about me saying, I can help you, I have the tools, I'm going to do this, and this is the goal. I can say, I can help you, I have the tools, I can open myself up, I can totally surrender, and your goal is my goal. I cannot truly help somebody unless I surrender to their need. And so everything that I've learned so far, which I don't really feel like I've scratched the surface, but everything that I have learned so far has become a piece of me. And every time somebody comes to see me, they get a little bit of that knowledge. I can get myself out of the way, use myself as a vessel to do this divine work, to help other people. It's not me and it's not my energy coming through. It's the energy of God coming through.
I think that's a true definition of what Jesus says when you think about like from that standpoint. And people strive so hard to be like Jesus, be like this, but they're not stepping aside
No.
to let God work through them. Or any other, ascended master. It doesn't have to, whatever, but I'm just saying, because we're in United States and Jesus is
Right.
prominently what people know about. So it's like, yeah, learning to just kind of step aside and do, I think that's really following in his path, the way that he lived his life. Yeah.
Jesus lived his life. There was so much when I went to India. It is in the lineage of Jesus Christ. And one of the things that I learned through these ancient manuscripts, ancient documents, that they date back to 10,000 BC, maybe even further back. There is a lot spoken in there about Jesus. And they are true, when I say true self-mastery techniques, they are true self-mastery techniques to bring us to liberation, to bring us to true freedom. True freedom. And one of the biggest things that I learned about the energy of Jesus is true love. Absolute, pure, unconditional love. And when that man was being crucified on the cross, he still loved the people that were hurting him. There's a story in the palm leaf manuscripts about when he was being crucified. The man that was driving the nails into his hand, he was saying, I can't do this, because he knew who he was standing in front of. And this man was blind in one eye. And he said, I can't do this. And Jesus said, do your duty. Do your duty. And so the man nailed his hand, and blood came out and hit the man's face and healed his blind eye.
Wow.
Even in the midst of Jesus going through his most painful experience, and there's so much more to this story, he was still healing people. There is power in true unconditional love. There's power in that. And it is not the power to make somebody do what you want them to do. The power of God, the power of true unconditional love can really heal anything. But we have to get ourselves out of the way first. We have to get over our control issues and say, I know what you need. You need to read the Bible every day. That's not true for everybody, You need to do this. You need to stop doing this, and you need to stop doing this and live this kind of life. That is not it. That is not it. If there's a homeless person on the street and they need food and they're hungry. We cannot preach the word of God to them. We have to feed them.
Yes.
We have to feed them. We have to love them enough to feed them and give them what they need. They don't need scripture at that moment. They need food.
They need to be shown love.
Yes. Yes.
Simple. I mean, it's like,
Yes.
like, just goes back to love. Show love.
Yes.
Everybody knows what love is because that's what we're born into. We're born from love, in love.
We are. We
So,
are. But a lot of people get love confused,
yeah,
with lust or
right.
their
I'm not
own
talking about
control issue.
romantic love. I'm talking about a love for a true, in your heart center love.
Love.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest symptoms of unconditional love is acceptance.
Mhm.
Whatever is, whoever is in front of you, whatever they're showing you, accept it. Sorry, you may not like it, but accept it. It's acceptance.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So, for listeners who want to reach out to you, how would they contact you?
Well, I have a website that's just being built now. It's live, but
Congratulations.
it's not completely finished yet. It's AllisonHolister.com.
Yes. It might be finished by October when this is out. So.
Yeah, hopefully it will. I'm hoping so. I'm much better working with people than I am sitting in front of a computer doing all this computer stuff. Like, it's like torture for me. I sit in front of a computer, I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yes.
I'd much rather be with the people than be on a computer. And I've got this wonderful lady that's helping me build my webpage. You probably know her. It's Joanne Newby.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
she's helping me out. She's been wonderful and so patient through this. And she's like, Allison. So last Saturday, she's like, you have to come to my house and you have to sit at the table and we're going to get this done. And I did. And I would rather be with the people, but she is helping me. She's been so patient and so wonderful with me. And, but it is AllisonHolister.com.
All of Allison's information will be in the show notes, so you can reach out to her on that. So thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. I love this conversation, everything. Yes. And I just appreciate you coming on here and sharing all of this. It means a lot.
Thank you so much for having me on. I love the podcast journey. I just love this. I love your platform, and I'm just so grateful to you for inviting me on today. Thank you.